This episode is sponsored today by the book 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. This book was written by kids. It's for kids. It's a coloring book. When you have a tragedy of divorce and you have young children who do not know how to express themselves, this coloring book, 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce, is the coloring book for them. Pick it up today at blendingthefamily.com or even on Amazon. 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. Again, written by kids, for kids. All right, Amy, you're a comedian. Say something funny.
Two priests walk into a bar.
Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from dads hitting rock bottom, daughters watching their parents divorce, or even what is a good wine for couples to have while talking about finances. Here's your host, who really does have a face for podcasting, Tommy Maloney.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thank you for coming by. This episode is all about failure. Epic failure. Oh my gosh. Amy Lyle is our guest on the podcast. Amy is an author, she's a comedian, she's an actress, but more about her in a little bit. I had to be talked off the ledge the other day, and you've heard this gentleman on this podcast before. He's been on several podcasts, and he's just a super great guy. Marcus Aurelius Anderson. I needed help. I needed some mentorship. And Marcus, who's a brilliant coach, a brilliant speaker, his book, The Gift of Adversity, out on Amazon. Free plug for Marcus. Oh my gosh, he has 1,683 followers. Oh my, I can't even crack 200. I can't even crack 200 followers. Not that it matters. It really doesn't matter. But Marcus Aurelius Anderson, I reached out to him, and he reminded me, and this is why great leaders have coaches. This is why you need a coach, or should have. I should say you should have a coach. And Marcus reminded me that, in a nutshell, I'm a good person. I was having my struggles, and Marcus gave me some great, not just advice, but Marcus gave me a bit of a map to follow. And he recommended that I mention on the podcast that if there's things that you hear on this podcast and you really like, reach out to me. Reach out. I would love to set up a coaching program for you. And I have to, I'm not really good at selling myself. I've never been good at selling myself or sales in general or sending resumes and cover letters. I suck at it. I shouldn't say that. Marcus reminded me, don't use negative talk, but that's okay. I'm just dumbfounded when you find people in your life that you can count on. And I told Marcus a quick story of, I reached out to, I thought this person was a friend, and I needed some help with how to market and promote books on Amazon. And this guy said, "Oh, Tommy, I'd love to help you. Let's set up a call, but first it's $500 for an hour of my time." I was like, no, thank you. And I get it. I understand. And, one of the exercises I've had to go through when I'm asked my speaking fee or coaching fee is I grab, and this is the exercise, you grab a salt shaker and a pepper shaker, okay? And these are just common objects. I can't even speak today. But you take these common objects, salt and pepper shaker, and you just say salt shaker, pepper shaker, and then I would say my fee. Just as it rolls off the tongue, salt shaker, pepper shaker, and then my speaking fee or my coaching fee, without blinking. And there are times where we just need to be reminded, and this is what Marcus did. He reminded me that I can impact somebody's life. I really can, and I have. I'm running a mastermind group right now, and I'm already seeing, within 2 weeks, I'm already seeing the impact, the results of helping somebody out, and they're doing what I've asked them to. And so, like I said, Marcus had to remind me that I'm a decent person, I'm a good person, but not to just hide. And I've talked about this before to other people about being a secret. Don't be a secret. And there's something about, you can brag about yourself, but in a humble way, very with not an ego, so to speak, but more of how you can serve them. And that was the thing he kept reminding me, Marcus, was that take the word sales, put in the word help or serve, and that made a big difference. So Marcus Aurelius Anderson, check him out. I'll put his information in the show notes, especially his book. His book is just, if you heard the podcast with Marcus, you'll know that his book is a life-changing book. And I don't say that a lot. One of the books I was telling our guest, Amy Lyle, about is The Last Lecture. That's a life-changing book. So again, Marcus's book, The Gift of Adversity. Get it. Buy it. Support Marcus. All right. I'm going to read this verbatim because I found it really funny. When I have guests on the podcast, I always ask them, just send me a bio. Send me a bio picture, whatever you want. Just send it to me. And Amy, who's a very funny person, and she's just a great person overall. Because here's what happened. Before I read Amy's bio. Is that we recorded early, and it was 7 a.m. my time, 9 o'clock her time, and recorded it. It was, oh my gosh, we had a great time. And I did something that I normally don't do, and that is use headphones. Because it was early in the morning, I didn't want to be too loud to the family, and especially our family dog, Duke, who, by the way, I almost killed accidentally, not in a mean-spirited way, accidentally. Because here's what happened. I had the headphones in, and I didn't realize that because I had headphones, I have these speakers, and I put the headphone in the speaker jack. Well, when I went to play the interview back, all you could pick up was my voice. You could not pick up Amy's voice. And I went to a panic. And again, ironically, we're talking about failure. And I was so mad at myself. I didn't know if I should cry or throw up after not hearing her end of the interview. And I panicked. Once I realized what I had done, I emailed her right away. And I said, Amy, I screwed up. I effed up. Would you have time today to re-record it? She said, sure, I have time. And it worked out. In matter of factly, was it a better interview? It was a different interview. I'm not going to say it was a better interview. It was a different interview. And this proves that it's okay to fail. And I know we've talked about this, and again, Marcus has brought this up on his episode. We need to teach failure to our kids so they can see us adults failing. And again, with Amy, she was a great sport about it. She understood what happened, and life goes on. And after I realized what had happened, I went for a walk. And our family dog, Duke, he's like 12, 13. He's old. And I just had to get out of the house. It was a beautiful day. And I think I took him a little too far because by the time we got halfway back, he was dragging. And I'm like, oh, God, no. But anyway, Amy Lyle. So here, I love what she sent me. And this is verbatim, and I'm quoting. Quote, maybe something like, after being in corporate America for 20 years, our next guest went into shock when she got remarried and was trying to blend 2 households, 4 kids, 2 dogs. And you might hear a couple of the dogs, and I'm excited because I'm not too wrapped up on the audio as far as hearing noises in the background. This is life. We all have our lives going on. Anyway, going on. Luckily, she saw the humor in all of it and even wrote about it, of being a stepmom. The name of the book, I need to get the link. Amazon, all right. Let's just do The Book of Failures. Okay, The Book of Failures, and it'll be the link will be in the show notes. The book opens up with, I've been married for 20 years. Not to the same people, but 20 years nonetheless. Amy is now a regular on Atlanta's popular morning show, Atlanta and Company, and a frequent guest on radio programs, podcasts, does stand-up, and always incorporates her real-life struggles of marriage and children into her act, or something like that, ... is what Amy put in there, unquote. Amy Lyle is the guest. She's an actress. She's a comedian. She has a couple of projects that she's going to talk about. One of the things I did ask her was, is her husband funny? Let's talk about coping after a failure. So even Amy had to walk me off a ledge right after realizing that. It turns out we both have a crush on Sarah Blakely, but in a professional way. If you're not familiar with Sarah Blakely, she's the creator of Spanx. Check out Amy's Facebook page, because on Fridays she has something called Friday Fails, and her Facebook is amylyle.me, so amylyle.me, but find her on Facebook. And also, I need to give a shout out to a friend of hers. She has a blog called Mom Loves Baking. Mom Loves Baking. There you go. That's it. I know I normally don't do a long intro like this, but I wanted to give you a backstory of what happened with Amy Lyle as she came on. And again, ironically, we're talking about failure. I did an epic failure, and I am super excited to have Amy on this program. So once again, thank you for listening, tuning in, sharing, caring, and if there's something I can help you with, please, you can always reach out to me at Tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Bye.
Hello?
Gosh. This is a good thing. Okay. After I realized what had happened, you can have probably many schools on this. You can have one school of, oh my gosh, I literally am a failure. The world hates me, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go to bed. Or there could be the school of, okay, how am I going to get over this? And in my case, what I did was, we have a very old dog. I love our dog. But I had to go for a walk. And I almost killed our dog because I was like, I know I can only go so far with him. I went maybe a little too far, because I had to get not just the feeling out, Amy, but the tension, the just, That's how I can describe it. So, what have you used, or what have others that you're familiar with, what coping mechanisms have they used when they've had major failures, such as I've had today?
Okay, well, first of all, I think it's interesting when you're on the other side of a snafu, and I just assume, I mean, you immediately email me and you're like, oh my goodness, Amy, I didn't turn the mic on, so nothing recorded, and I just immediately giggled because my first thought was like, oh, well, we'll just reschedule. You know, that's it. I mean, I was not angry, and so that kind of hurts my heart that you were like, oh my gosh, you know, beating up, you know, on yourself because of this very, very small, you know, snafu. So now that, you know, I'm older, I try to remember that normally we are much harder on ourselves. And, you know, I've done it a million times where I will, you know, send a book, a blogger, my book, and ask them to review it and, you know, put the book as attached, and then I forget to attach the book, you know, something like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, how humiliating, you know, I didn't do this. But really, I just make light of it. I'm like, you know, it is a book of failures, so I forgot to attach it. Here it is, or whatever. But I think I think what you did was perfect. Like, hey, Amy, I forgot to hit the button, so we're going to have to do it again. And then it's like, what else can you do, right? You just got to move on.
Yeah, and I look back at Elizabeth Stitt, who was on this show. She had reached out to me on LinkedIn, and we had she set up a video call, a Zoom call, and it went really well. And then I started thinking, oh, we should have just recorded this. And so I reached back out to her within 48 hours, and I said, Elizabeth, let's do a podcast. My only concern is, like, what you and I are going through right now. I'm like, oh, crap. What else can we talk about? And the more I thought about it, you know, taking the walk this morning, I was like, well, in my opinion, I think I not to overuse this word, but I think I failed you because maybe as somebody who's doing the interview, maybe I should have focused more. Let's talk more about failure. And ironically, here we are talking about failure.
Everybody has failure, Tommy. Everybody has failures.
I don't want any more failures.
Well, too bad. You're human. You're a human being, so you're going to have failures. And
and this is where I'm so happy we're doing a take two on this. Because you bring up a great point of you are a stand-up comedian, right?
Yes.
I'm sure maybe once on stage, I'm just guessing once, Amy, you bombed. Just one time. One time.
Oh, just that one time. Yeah, once. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to expand.
Really?
No, what are you going to say? You know right away. And sometimes you can recover. And let me give you a trick. All those wannabe stand-up comedians. What you do is you wedge new material in between very, very trusted material. That's what you do. If you're trying to try a new bit, you work it in between two really stable bits. And you see comedians do that all the time. You're like, what? And then you save yourself. So it's not the end of the world. And, sometimes when you mess up on stage, it's really funny. I mean, you can have a quick recovery. That's for sure. If you do improv or you do stand-up comedy, or you're on stage every week like I am as an actress every single week, and it's live, you have to recover. You have to think on your feet. It's not the end of the world. It's never the end of the world if you fail. Never. Unless you die, then you're done.
Well, yeah, that's
that's final. That's the final fail.
Well, it depends how you died, I guess.
It
I don't
does.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Not to go down that rabbit hole, but so one of the things I get a kick out of, because I really want to try stand-up. I really do.
Do it.
And one of the comedians you mentioned, was Ron White. And Ron White, I'll never forget, I have a DVD of one of his tours, and it was the first night of the tour, and it started in Seattle. And he was doing a bit, and as he was doing the bit, he realized, I didn't complete writing this bit. And, and it was...
the punchline's going to come next time.
Exactly. And it was so funny that he realized...
I'm imagining his face, though, holding the cigar and the scotch. I'm imagining his face, and he could pull that off. He probably told that joke the next time the exact same way. I'm not even kidding you. That's how talented Ron White is. Like, he may have, that was so funny and the audience loved it. He may have done that exact same joke saying he forgot to do the bit for 12 shows, because he's a genius.
Yeah, and I do find it funnier. I somewhat pride myself of learning. So whenever I've worked with speakers or given presentation on how to write your speech, one of the things I always tell, especially new speakers, is to watch comedians. Because comedians can really turn on a fly. They can, if they hear something in the audience, they can grab that and use that nugget. And I really love watching comedy. And there's a scientific breakdown of comedy, because you have to craft the speech. But I always figure, as two of my heroes, Dr. Stephen Covey and Dr. Wayne Dyer, always talked about, was thinking from the end. And I always picture, especially as a comedian, you start with the punchline and then work your way back to craft the joke.
Sometimes, yes, sure.
And I just find the way comedians write, because you do have to eliminate words to get to the punchline.
Right. Concise. Nobody... Even when people make the mistake and they say Kevin Hart tells these long stories, Eddie Murphy tells long stories. No, they don't. They are broken into short bits, and the audience is laughing every several seconds. And so if you watch comedy, because everybody thinks that, it's just, I could get up there and tell a story. No, it's not the same as telling a story at a cocktail party. So the next time you watch Ron White or Kevin Hart or Chelsea Handler or your favorite comedians, you'll notice even Ellen DeGeneres, even when they're telling a long story, it's broken into many little bits.
I look back recently, Bill Hader was hosting Saturday Night Live.
He's so funny.
He is hilarious. Have you seen his new show, Barry?
No, but Bill Hader's the one that was in the Amy Schumer movie, right? He played the physician.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But watch Barry. It's
just looking at him makes me laugh. He has such a peculiar, unique look to him. His physicality is funny. I like, comedy is such a personal thing. People either like it or they don't. But I like Jack Black in movies because I love the way he swirls his body around. Just his physicality to me is so funny. Or Will Ferrell. Think of Will Ferrell in Old School. The way he moves his body just makes... He doesn't even have to say anything.
We're going streaking!
I don't know. Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just depends on whatever. But he's so funny. That's from Old School.
Yes. Bill Hader, he does that, or used to do that character on Saturday Night Live. Oh, crud. Now I can't think of it.
One time he did, Dog Boy, or he did an animal, right?
Yeah. Shoot. But he does this, not yuppie, but this really peculiar character for a Weekend Update. And every time, pretty much every time he does it, he's cracking up. And it doesn't take anything away from the bit, from the character. I personally think it enhances it. And it goes back to why watching comedians crack up and make mistakes, because as you were saying to me, they're human. We're all human. And it's so fun to watch because we all are different. What makes us unique is what makes us laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And
they usually come from, I challenge you to find a comedian that came from a normal household. I challenge you to find, most of them have had some tragedy in their household, or real strict upbringing, or been ignored, like Judd Apatow. I'm obsessed with Judd Apatow.
Genius.
And he was so ignored as a child. Like, I remember watching an interview with Judd Apatow, and I think it was Jerry Seinfeld, and they were, and I could have been in there too, where it's like, oh, your parents interested in this? No, like not in the least. So it cracks me up. So most of the time, comedians are good on their feet because they've had to cope. That's why they're funny, is they've had to cope with something. They're using the comedy to deflect something negative coming their way, or to be able to digest the serious nature of what's going on in their household. A lot of times, not everyone, but a lot of them have real tragic, weird, wonky upbringings.
What's Amy's tragedy? What is, yeah.
My tragedy is I was born to a very stoic military-style German father who children were to be seen and not heard. And the message to my sister and I was, if you died tomorrow, the world would keep spinning. You are not special.
Ouch. Dad of the year.
Yeah. And so, my dad and I get along fine now, but as you can imagine, so my sister and I were comedians by the time we were 5 years old. We would roller skate and our basement wasn't finished. It was, cement, and we would put on comedy shows and variety shows, singing and stuff. And so that was we would take turns imitating my father. He was very much like, stop laughing, girls. Like if we were in the car at dinner, stop laughing. Nothing can be that funny. And that would make us laugh, even more. So we would imitate them. Mm-hmm. Most comedians imitate their parents because parents are so ridiculous.
My shtick was I would imitate my grandfather. His famous line in the household was always, "Jesus Christ, Helen," my grandmother. "Just throw it away. Just throw it away." And I did
my
that.
dad would throw that out too.
Yeah, I did that at the Thanksgiving dinner table one year, and my Aunt Nancy next to me almost peed her pants because it was great. It was great to be on stage at the dinner table.
I know. Dinner tables are that's a great performance. My dad, I don't do him in stand-up, but I did put a chapter in my book about how funny he is. Like, he lives in Ohio. I live in Atlanta. And so he comes down a couple times a year. And every time he tells me, literally, he gives me the play-by-play of the roads. Like,
Amy? Are you kidding me? Amy? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. This is so funny. Oop, there we go. Oop, there we go. And was that it? Ooh, lost you. And am I still recording though? Yeah, still recording. Okay, we're still recording. Weird. Oh, even I said that. All right.
could hear you the whole time.
Really?
The whole time I could hear you. You're like, oh my God.
Oh, man.
You're like, I think I lost you. I'm like, no, hello, I'm here.
I'm going to be a raging alcoholic by the end of this week.
No, don't. That's silly.
All right, so your dad would do the play-by-play of... Because
Yeah,
he
he'd
would.
be like,
I assume he was driving down
that's
from
a good
Ohio.
road right there, Highway 19. That's a good road. That's a good road. It used to be a 2-road. Now it's a 3-road. And then, of course, the weather. Everything with the weather. I get that. So that's what we talk about. And he always says, it's so funny. He always says he's going to come down for like 2 weeks. He's like, I'm going to come down for 2 weeks, and then he comes down and he stays with us, and we have 4 kids and 2 dogs. It's just complete chaos. So literally like 3 days in, he's like, I think I got this something to do. I gotta go. And, it's just a big change for him. That's a big change. He's 78, and to come down and be around 4 crazy kids and animals and me, it's a lot.
All right, let's talk about the book.
All right.
The Book of Failures. Hashtag.
Amy Vinegar Chemist Lyle Book of Failures. I wanted the title to even scream, that woman has probably had some problems. How many times has she been married? Actually, only twice.
Only twice, but within a 20-year span, is that right?
Yeah. I've been married for 20 years, just not to the same people.
And not in a row.
Nonetheless, 20 years. That's how the book opens. Yes.
And why a book of failures?
Why a book of failures? Okay, so this stemmed from a failure. You will like this. So I had written a screenplay, long story longer. I'm an actor for a local nonprofit, and I started writing for them plays. And then from that, I wanted to write something, a full feature movie. So I wrote a screenplay under the mentorship of a guy that vetted films for Disney. So anyway, when I was done with the film, he said, you have to call an entertainment attorney. I said, I don't know any entertainment attorneys. He said, you can call mine. So I call him, and the guy's like, yes, I know who you are. Rodney told me you're calling. I'm sorry, I don't care how funny you are. I'm not going to represent you. You're no one. You don't know anyone, and you don't have any money.
Ouch.
Yeah. So I said, after a long pause, I said, that makes me really expletive sad. And he started laughing and said, you know what, Amy, I'm going to give you some free advice. He said, you need to get on the map. You need to be very searchable. So you need to write a book or a blog. And I said, what would I write about? I just finished the screenplay. And then he said, write what you expletive know, and hung up. And it was great advice. And I immediately thought, I have had a lot of failures. And so I was like, you want a book? You want a book? Oh, I'll give you a book. And, I cranked it out in like 6 months.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. I worked, if you ask my family, they're like, they felt like I was working on it 24 hours a day. I worked so hard on it. I really did.
And I am going to assume that these are all your failures?
They are my failures. I start the book out, it says, these are mostly true stories, but some of them are lies. Because sometimes I would combine a story, it wasn't really enough to have 2 little tiny stories. So I would combine a story into one story, but 99% of it is true.
And how is the book broken down as far as, do you get to bigger failures towards the end of the book? Or
No, it's kind of, no, and it's not really in chronological order. But it's so funny, I got a compliment the other day. They're like, I really liked it because it's like, a longer story and then a shorter story, and then 2 short stories and then a long story. And it's essay style, and I'm so excited and obviously very influenced by my genre, which the people, like if you look my book up on Amazon, The Book of Failures, it sits right next to, on any given day, it's number 2. It's been a bestseller since it came out. So, today I think it was number 13. The other day it was number 3. So it's like Trevor Noah, Amy Poehler, Anna Faris. I think she has a book out. Jenny Lawson, Tina Fey, Chelsea Handler, Kevin Hart. Like, my book is right in the pack with their books, which it's amazing to be, a self-published author and see my book right up there with their books. It's so fun. But I was obviously very influenced by their books because I've read all their books and I love them. And my favorite style of a funny book is an essay style book because it kind of reads like a stand-up bit a little bit. That's the rhythm of it.
What's your marketing secret to stay so up top on Amazon?
It's so funny. I just did a how to market your self-published book speech at the library, the local library. I was so tickled that they asked me, and it's a combination of a lot of things, but one of it is the most powerful thing is to understand how Amazon marketing services work. So when you publish a book on Amazon, there's 7 million books on Amazon, just so you know, thousands in my genre. So how would anyone ever find your book, right, if you're on page 75? So there's lots of secrets about that, but the number one secret is use Amazon marketing. So if somebody looks up Kevin Hart's book, my book comes up at the bottom. And if they click my book, I have to pay a fee. It's, per click. And so that's 90% of my revenue comes from Amazon. Obviously, if I do a speaking engagement, I sell a lot of books. If I'm on TV, I sell books. If I'm on a podcast, I sell books. But to be honest with you, most of your books come from advertising on Amazon.
And I'm only asking because I'm 80% done with my book. And
I will help you when you're ready. Really, there's a whole science. Before you publish that book, we have to have a conversation because there's a whole science behind it, coming down to what your title is, what your subtitle is really powerful, and you'll need it for your searchability on Amazon.
Well,
really.
The title of the book is My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m.
Okay, then you need a subtitle that spells out exactly what that book is. It is a funny book. Is it a how-to book? Is it a memoir? For example, my book, the subtitle is a funny memoir. So thousands of people search on funny memoir every day, and my book is the first book to come up because Amazon gives a lot of weight to your title and your subtitle.
Tricky.
Yes, and I would highly recommend it for you and anyone else that's listening that wants to write a book is to watch Dave Chesson, Chesson. They're free videos, and he is a genius, and giant, Random House publishers consult with him because he's so knowledgeable about the algorithms of Amazon. And so he has hours and hours and hours of things that can help you as you get ready to launch your book.
Can you spell Dave's last name again?
Yeah, C is in cat, and then H is in horse, E is in Edward, Sam, S-S-O-N is in Nancy, Chesson. Okay. Dave Chesson, he is a genius.
I will add that to the show notes.
Yeah.
So it took you 6 months to write the book.
Yes.
What was your daily writing regime? And what is your writing regime when you're writing comedy? Are they the same? Are they different?
They're different. When I am writing stand-up, that's something you really need to pick it up and put it back down. Pick it up, put it back down, read it out loud a lot of times, shorten it. A book is a little bit different. If you're writing a book, I recommend that you have about 50,000 words and then cut it. And so just for a book, just get it all out. Don't worry about the punctuation and the order and all that stuff. Just get it out first. Then maybe start reading it out loud, and you will discover a lot of problems when you read your book out loud. And then once you do that, then I would send it to a very recommended content editor, and then they'll cut it down even more. And it's a negotiation. Sometimes they say, okay, you can keep this chapter, but you have to tweak it this way or whatever. And then finally to a proofreader.
BJ Novak, he carries tons of those moleskin notebooks wherever he goes.
I text myself.
Oh, really?
If I'm out and somebody, even if it's a funny line, if you're writing a book, especially a community book, or you're a comedy person, I'm always eavesdropping on, conversations going on around me. And sometimes one funny line, to your point, I think you brought this up earlier, one funny punchline, you can build a whole story around it. And so then I text myself the punchline, or I text myself the bullet points of the conversation. Mm-hmm. And I try, now that I have a book, so I have to spend some time marketing the book. I really try to block out my time. You and I come from, it's so funny, you and I both come from a giant sales staffing organization, Spirion. We both work for them in a training capacity. That cracks me up that we both did that. But something I used to train the salespeople to do was to block out their time, right? Because you're making different types of calls. And so I really stuck to that. It worked for me as a salesperson, and it works for me as a writer. So I really tried to write a minimum, because I'm working on my second book, a minimum of 1,000 words a day, which is not very many words. If you really sit down, you can write 10,000 words a day. But, well, that'd be a long day, but at least 1,000 words a day. I do that. And then I try to reach out to, somebody like you, like, hey, would your audience be interested in listening to my story? I try to do a couple, inquiries every day. So I really try to stick to that, like blocking out my time. Otherwise you won't get everything done.
Yeah. I use what's called, HVAs, high value assignments. So each day I have a couple of different types of whiteboards. I have another one I have to put up. But the HVAs, essentially are what are the 3 goals I need to accomplish to make it a successful day? And due to my stupidity today, they're not going to get accomplished today, which is okay. Life goes on. You bring up a great point, because I write a weekly column for the Good Men Project, and it's a series. I was speaking to one of the editors a while back, and he said, why don't you try writing a series that's going to take you for 52 weeks? I'm like, okay. And nothing really jumped out at me. I continue to write. Most of the stuff I write for them is dealing with blended families and divorce and things of that nature, and why I'm an idiot ex-husband, the positive stuff.
Sure.
And I was working this day job, and it was just killing me, Amy. But the positive was, even though I had a 3-hour round trip commute, I figured out a way to create, even though it was a podcast within the podcast, and I called it Driving While Podcasting. So I would just put thoughts out on the phone, and it was a very positive thing. But as I was dreading this job, and then there was another training opportunity that fell through. So, to use your quote that I love, that I posted on Facebook, you're not a failure, you're just moving a little bit, or you're having a little bit of trouble right now.
Right. That's how I open the book. The first chapter ends with, I'm either going to have to be admitted into a mental institution, or I'm going to have the mantra of, I am not a failure. I am just having a little bit of trouble right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've, it's funny because I just keep going back to that little quote of yours. And so the series I'm writing is called God Pushed Me. And I've never, even though I went to Catholic school, I've never been a man of faith, a man of...
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, you want to analyze me? I've had other guests on this episode, on the show episode.
I'm not going to analyze you. I find that interesting.
Yeah, I went to Catholic school, and
you may not be religious because you went to Catholic school.
True.
It may have turned you away from it. Yeah.
Yeah. The only time I enjoyed it was we convinced, I think it was our junior year religion teacher, to take us to the chapel so we can go meditate, aka go take a nap.
Sure.
But that's what this series is about. I've taken a leap of faith of trying to monetize this podcast and monetize the writing and things like that. And I have no idea where I'm going with this, other than you're talking about the writing. And for me, for me, I mean, you said 1,000 words. Yeah, I can do 1,000 words, but there are times where, I mean, I know my energy. My energy, I have to write early in the morning. I get past 10, 11 o'clock, I'm done. And if I can get anywhere between 500 to 1,000 words, that's a good day for me.
Yeah, and it's not a race.
No.
It's not a race. I mean, my second book that I'm doing is a little bit harder because they're not my own failures. It's the failures of my friends, or maybe I'm going to call it My Dog Ate a Diaper, Baby Diaper, and other stories. I don't know yet. I'm playing with different titles. But it's so I'm collecting those failures, and you would be amazed. People do not want to share their failures. They don't like to show. It's like right up there with spiders and death, like being humiliated. And so it's harder than you think. But I find it's just like sales, right? If you ask for something, the more specific you are, the more likely someone's going to be like, I know someone. So I try to be specific. Every Friday I do a Friday fail on Facebook. Sometimes I get 200 responses. It's so funny. So, for example, last week was like spring break fails. My fail was I put like sunblock 150 all over my alabaster, Irish German skin. And the only thing that got sunburned were my kneecaps. Like they were, they were like fire engine red, my kneecaps. I'm like, what's happening with that? But, anyway, so I try to ask people specific things. Like I open with that. I'm like, hey, my kneecaps are as red as, how is your spring break going? And they'll give me fails, or I'll have like an airplane fail. And so they'll be like, oh yeah, and it'll jolt their memory. They're like, oh yeah, this one time on the airplane when this person, threw up on me, from behind or whatever. So but I can't rush the process because it is what it is.
Do you teach between your bonus kids and your own daughter? Do you teach them how to fail?
Oh yeah, daily. I encourage them to fail. And you and I had talked about that before. It's like our kids are, super competitive. They're in a very good public high school. It's one of the top 50 in the country. And super competitive. And they sometimes are like, I want to take this easier class because I know I can get an A. And my husband and I say, no, don't do that. Take the challenging class and get a B. Like life is about challenging yourself, not just coasting. And getting a B in high school, I promise you, will not be the end of the world. No one has ever asked me my GPA in high school ever. And all of my kids have a higher GPA than I had. But, you have to fail. I think the first couple of years out of college, unless you were, a dentist or an engineer, you're kind of finding out what you don't want to do. Like my first job, I worked in accounting. Oh my gosh, that was interesting. I'm glad I learned, about numbers. I have a great appreciation. It helped me in years to come as a salesperson and a sales manager to understand manipulating numbers. But to sit and think about numbers all day, that's just not for me. And I don't think of it as a failure. I think of it as, okay, now I know I don't want to do that.
Yeah, my kids love to make fun of me because anytime it comes to adding something, they just look at me and go, ignore him. He doesn't do math, which is, I don't. When, my wife and I, when we talk about our weekly budget and doing our weekly budget, I just shut down because I don't want to hear about numbers. I don't want to hear how bad, our budget is. I'd rather sit and write. I'd rather sit and create a podcast. I'd rather sit and, try and figure out a way to do something on Instagram. That to me is more interesting than having to figure out how are we going to pay for gas this week. I don't know. Push the car.
I know, and that's important, especially when you have kids. I think in most cases you're going to be poor when you come out of college anyway. I mean, you're not going to make usually a ton of money unless you have a specific field. But like, why not work in something you love and have passion for? And I, if I had to do something over again, I would have done that. My parents were like, be a business major, be a business person. And I'm glad I took, statistics and accounting and marketing and, economics, and that's great. But really, I think I would have had fun going to, major in theater. That would have been fun, or journalism. That would have been fun. But I didn't think I was allowed to do that, so I didn't do it. But that's okay. I mean, I love talking to people about changing your life after 40 because, I was in corporate America until then. And then my life changed dramatically. And all those failures turned into really, really, really fun things.
I was laughing when you said become a theater major because
every mom's dream, a theater major, a theater waiter, great.
My major in college, one of the colleges I attended, my major was sports medicine. Mm-hmm. Because I grew up in Chicago and I worked for, back then when we had the North American Soccer League, the professional soccer league, and I worked for the Chicago team. I worked for the trainer. I thought that was going to be my path. I was going to become a professional trainer and work for the NFL or NHL. Got to college and realized I can't dissect without throwing up. and became a theater major. Never took a theater class after that, though.
Never what after that?
I never took a theater class after that because they had kicked me out.
Oh, that's a fail.
That's a good fail, though.
I know. Maybe you could tell me that, or you could email me later so I could put it in my book. I'll credit you.
I went from that. I went to Columbia College in Chicago and discovered broadcasting was my way to go.
Well, that's not a failure.
No, I got a 10-year radio career out of it, and I do have the best of on CD, Milli Vanilli. Thank you.
Wait, was that the band that they weren't really a band?
Yeah, they didn't sing.
They got in trouble. They won 17 Grammys, and they're like, oh, by the way, the guys that were singing this are not from Jamaica. They're from Cleveland.
Well, they didn't sing their music. They had tracking done.
Lip syncing.
Yeah.
Well, but I can't tell you who the real singers were, but I could tell you. I remember Milli Vanilli.
Yeah.
So, it was great marketing, right?
Yes, it was extreme great marketing for them.
Mm-hmm. I just watched The Greatest Showman last night, and I love the quote from the Barnum and Bailey guy where he said, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's like the greatest entertainment is just to bring happiness to someone. And you know what? Milli Vanilli made me happy. I don't care if they're lip singing it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. Who cares?
I want to bring up. I know you have hero worshiping. I have hero worshiping for Sarah Blakely because since we're talking about failure and as parents, we do want to see our kids fail. And I mean, the story of Sarah Blakely's dad who told the kids, "Hey, what'd you fail at today?"
Yes. He encouraged them to talk about their failures, and it has rubbed off on her so immensely, and she talks about it all the time. I saw her recently at an Emory University master's program talk. But anyway, I got some free Spanx. I won $100 worth of Spanx, which I was very excited about. I got the new arm tights, Spanx for your arms. Anyway, she was talking about how she had a prototype, I think for the arm tights actually, and how the group would come in with their head held low like, oh, this isn't working. And she was so engineering minded about it, like, okay, well now we know that doesn't work. All right, let's try something else. And she just has such an amazing attitude about failure because that's the way she was raised. She wasn't raised that if you make a mistake or if you fail that you should be shamed about it. It's not shameful. You just learn and go on. I mean, how amazing that. What a gift her parents gave her.
Yeah, and I was talking to one of my mentors yesterday, Marcus Aurelius Anderson, who it's like if I'm being interviewed on another podcast or this podcast, his name always comes up. And he was talking me off the ledge yesterday. God bless him. And we talked about, he said, when he was on the podcast, he reminded me yesterday to say, he said, just remember, Tommy, one of the first things I told you is it's okay to fail. And like I said, I've been struggling with a lot of failures as of late. And I think, in my opinion, Sarah Blakely's dad just gave them the golden ticket, her and her brother, the golden ticket to say, in life, you're going to fail. but it's how you are resilient to failure.
Right, how you handle it. And you brought up a good point with your mentor. So, okay, once I was at work, and this is when I was working in accounting, and back in the day, so this was like the early 90s, so my style icon was Heather Locklear from Melrose Place.
Uh-huh.
So, like, imagine like the big shoulder pads and like, short skirt and pantyhose and stilettos. Like, I dressed exactly like Heather Locklear at the accounting firm. Everybody did. And they had this very grand staircase. Like, it was like maybe 15 stairs and then like a platform and then another 15 stairs. And my stiletto got caught on the carpet and I fell screaming down the stairs. Like, it was not like a graceful fall. It was like a dramatic, violent, I hurt myself. And then at the bottom they had marble and I slid like, zoom. And my skirt, my Melrose Place skirt got rolled up above my underwear. And my leg was behind my back, all twisted up. Ooh. And like my shoe, like one shoe was on like step 5 and one shoe was like, on the floor. And I had these underwear that said Happy Buns and they had hamburger buns on them. And I look up and literally there are 50 accountants looking over at me on the floor. And I hobbled, this is a funny story. So I hobbled to my car, I'm crying. I try to get in the car and I realize my purse is still in the building. So I have to go and go get my purse, go back out and I go to my building. And I live on the 20th floor in a studio apartment and there's no washer and dryer. And my neighbor, our whole floor was studios. And I saw her and she had the wash with her and my eyes were all red and she's like, what happened? I told her the tale. I fell down, all my bosses saw me with my underwear. It was so embarrassing. And it's like 1,000 degrees in Atlanta. So I had thigh-high pantyhose on. I mean, it was like, it was ugly. And so she listened and she nodded and she said all the right words. And then she throws out, she goes, yeah, but did you chip your tooth? And I had not chipped my tooth. And so then she proceeded to tell me that she had a fall down story at her job and she chipped her tooth. I mean, she really chipped it. Like the nerve was dangling and
Ouch.
I put like trying to ice on it to keep it alive. And so there's such a powerful thing. And that's why I wrote the book. There's such a powerful thing when someone says, I did that too, or I know how you feel. Oh, you're a stepmom and you're struggling. I understand that. Oh, you're divorced. I understand that. Oh, you're having a hard time blending your family. Well, I understand that. So it's, and on a not funny note, it's like, look at the Me Too movement where when you were reading those quotes about, Harvey Weinstein sexually harassing, oh my goodness, hundreds of women, right, for the past 20 years. Some of those tweets or whatever, people said, I have been carrying this burden for 20 years. And they felt the strength in numbers and they finally came forward and it felt like a weight was lifted. And so that's my intention of the book is, you're a mom and you're working, you're trying to be a great mom, you're trying to be a great spouse, you're trying to be a great employee, you're trying to be a friend and all that stuff. And we're all trying to do the best we can. And most of us probably aren't doing as well as we look like we are on Facebook, right? That's false. Really, we're having struggles. And so I just think it's a beautiful thing when people come together and they're like, oh gosh, I'm failing in this, or I'm having struggles with this. And you're not giving up. You're just disclosing that you're having a little bit of trouble. And you should surround yourself with people that lift you up and give you good counsel.
Pastor Joel Osteen, one of my favorite quotes from him is, if you're the smartest one in your group, you need a bigger group.
Right.
And you talk about mentorship. What do you do when you feel like you've had one too many failures? What is your way of handling that, or who do you reach out? What do you do?
Well, it depends on what I'm working on. So, when I published this book, I knew less than zero about publishing books. And this is such a funny story. So I did this Facebook video with 2 girls that after my book launch, I had this I had this giant book launch where one of the housewives of Atlanta was my MC. She's also a plastic surgeon. I'm not making this up. We gave away a vaginal rejuvenation and also a vampire facial. I'm not kidding. We gave away 200 prizes. I mean, it's like I got pressed before the book launch because it was such a ridiculous book launch. So fun. But anyway, where was I going with that? With the book? Oh, so I met these two women that came to the book launch. They reached out to me and they said, "Oh, I went to your book launch with my book club, and can we meet in person?" I said, "Sure." So there's a Barnes and Noble down the street, and there's the Starbucks in it. So we met there, and we were sitting. There was no seats available, so we're sitting in between the racks of books, the shelves, and I put my phone up and started videotaping, and I was giggling, and I was like, "Hi. We are the Cumming Writers Club." That's the city that we live in, Cumming, Georgia. And we're in Barnes & Noble, but our books aren't here. Our books are on Amazon. You know, it was just like this funny, you know, we were looking for our books, but we can't find them. You know why? Because they're on Amazon. And I said, "But if you want to join our club, you can." And it was really just a cute little funny video. And I got 50, so I put that on Facebook. I got 50 requests like, "Do you really have a book club? Do you really have a writing club?" And then I was like, "Oh, okay, I do now." So I started a writing club, and now we have over 100 members, and we meet twice a month in person at Starbucks, and we read. So, you know, if somebody has material, you can read. Sometimes we have to break into groups because we have so many, but you can read 10 minutes of your material, and or you can bring it, and people can read it at home and give you feedback via email or whatever. And we also share marketing leads. Hey, this person's interviewing authors. Here's their name and number. Reach out to them. Hey, I was on this television show. Here's the producer's name. Here's a podcast. He's really funny. Do this. And it has been, and there's people that are way further in their journey than I am. There's some, you know, traditionally published people, some people with 9 novels out. And then there's other people that do blogs. So, you know, anyone is welcome that's interested in writing. And I would call all of those, right now it's a women's club, all of those women, you know, I would put them in the mentor category. I could call any of them. Also, we have 2 local magazine editors that are members of the club. And one of them I actually write for. I love her. But so she gives wise counsel as well. So surrounding yourself with, like you said, smarter people than you are. And I think being generous with what, you know, I can't help everyone, but I will definitely share anything that I know, you know. So I think being generous is, you'll get it tenfold.
And maybe it's me, maybe it's my fault, but you reach out to people and say, "Hey, I need help with this problem." For example, I had reached out to somebody about 2 years ago about marketing on Amazon books. And he said, "I would love to help you." Oh my gosh, I can give you some great tips. It's $500 an hour.
Oh, ouch, yeah.
I'm like, what? And I said, "Okay, all right, thanks, bye."
You know, my girlfriend, Lisa, she has this giant blog. I'm going to give her a pitch. Mom Loves Baking. And it's this giant blog. And she has taken some of those courses. You know, we pay money. And for her, it really pays off because she gets paid by how many followers she gets, right? Because, you know, stevia or sugar companies or blueberry companies are like, "Hey, we'll pay you $1,000 a recipe if you make a recipe and a video, you know, using our products and taking a photograph," or whatever, how it works. That's kind of how it works. And so for her to grow her Instagram, you know, from 5,000 people to 100,000 people, she literally makes more money on that. And so I kind of learned some of that stuff from her because she's already taken the class. She's so generous to share with me, and then I share other stuff with her. But I think it just depends on what your objective is. I mean, if I was going to that's not how I make my money, is by having followers. I would like you to follow me, you know, Amy Lyle .me on Facebook, but I'm not getting paid for that. But she is, and so that's a good investment, right? Like, if you're going to get paid to grow your followers, maybe it's worth $500 to do that. But I'm telling you, for you, if you're interested in Amazon marketing, you could watch the Dave Chesson videos for free, and then you buy his little software that's $99, and it'll change your life forever and make everything easier.
Wow. I need my life changed in a better way these days. Where have you felt that you failed in the blended family realm?
So many ways, Tommy. So many ways. Okay, one story. I'm going to give you the story. So, a couple years ago, I forgot my husband's birthday. I just forgot it. I didn't mean to forget it, but I did. So the next year, I was really going to make it up for him, and I had this giant 70s party. I mean, I went all out. It was like MASH posters, Jaws posters, lots of ambrosia salad, crock pots everywhere, fake cigarettes, and, Charlie's Angels outfits, and we had this big blowout party, and I still put the date of his birthday incorrect on the cake. He's like, what? That's not even the year I was born. I'm like, can you just go with it? You know what I mean? I'm doing the best I can here.
Right.
And he's like, okay. So one of my girlfriends, she is a big-time designer in Atlanta, known. She has a great blog and everything. But anyway, so every time I go to her house, I'm a comedian, so I don't want to give her wine. Everybody else gives her wine. So I always give her like big, giant buckets of candy from Costco, right? Because I want to stand out. Because that's what we do as actors and comedians. We want to stand out, right?
Right.
So she came to my party, she and her husband, and apparently she gave us lollipops. And my husband's like, hey, so-and-so gave you these gourmet lollipops. I'm like, just hide them in my top drawer. I put like cheap bank lollipops on the top to decoy the children. And then the good lollipops and the chocolate stuff is like at the bottom, like you'd never, find it. In the refrigerator, hide it under the kale. They're not going to find the Kit Kats under the kale. They don't go into the kale drawer. But anyway, that's a tip for you moms. So a couple weeks later, we're at dinner, and the middle daughter is like, you lied to me about doing drugs. And I was like, no, really, I've never done drugs. That's not my thing, ever. And she's like, I ate one of those lollipops and I got high.
What?
And I was like, what? And I wonder what was happening, because my husband and I had been out to dinner, and she called me like 9 times about The Talented Mr. Ripley, which is a disturbing show. But she's like 18, and I'm like, it's not that disturbing, And so this is my fail. This is a long story to tell you a fail. My failure is I didn't have a talk to her about doing drugs, or drugs are illegal in Atlanta, in Georgia, or that's irresponsible, or anything like that. I just stomped off from the table, and I went and got the other lollipop, and I got in the bathtub, and I fired up my iPad, and I watched The Talented Mr. Ripley and ate that lollipop by myself. So I just shirked. I shirked all my responsibility in the learning moment of like, don't be doing drugs. And what does that say about me as a parent? But I've never had a weed lollipop before, and I have to say that I like that weed lollipop. I've never had another one, but I had the one weed lollipop, and I thought it was great.
Well, I live in Colorado, so...
Everybody has weed lollipops. And I have to admit that The Talented Mr. Ripley, one of my favorite films, it did look very vibrant when I was eating the lollipop. It did seem like it was coming to life, so I can understand her issue with that. But, yeah, anyway, so that's not a very proud moment as a mom.
What did you do to bring the kids together while you and your husband were dating?
We did not. We did not bring them together while we were dating. We kept them very separate until we were like really serious and we're going to get engaged. And then it was like this whirlwind. By the time we said we're going to get engaged and get married is not very long. And so we just threw them in the pot. We threw the kids in the pot, and it worked out. I think it worked out because my daughter is the youngest.
What are the ages?
The ages are 20. One is 20. She's in college. One is 18. She's a senior. One is 16. He's a sophomore. And one is 15. She's a freshman.
And the freshman is your daughter?
Yes, they actually, Tommy, they came home. So if you heard like a lot of shuffling around, that was me trying to close doors and go shh, shh to them. So sorry if you heard that, but that's what was happening is all these teenagers just piled into my house.
That's okay. Listeners of this podcast have heard our dog Duke bark several times.
Your dog or my dog?
My dog.
Oh, okay, because I could hear my dog barking from my bedroom, but I was hoping you couldn't hear it because I had the door closed.
Oh, that's okay. What's the dog's name?
We have 2 dogs. We have a golden retriever. He's 11, named Cooper. And we have we're not sure what he is. We think he is a German Shepherd Lab, possibly Corgi, because his legs are not proportionate to his very long body. Puppy named Mason.
I think somebody was having one of those lollipops when they created that dog.
He has and he has these giant ears that look like Yoda. I mean, he is the most unproportionate dog ever. These giant ears. He's so funny looking, and he's jet black, and he's just the sweet. And he has like a slight dysplasia in his elbow. Like we give him, medicine for it, but it's so funny because he just walks like John Travolta. Like imagine John Travolta and Stay Alive, like, you can't do that about it. Walking down the street and he's like, that's Mason. Like he struts because he just favors the other leg. It's hilarious. I love him so much.
I just picture more of the Welcome Back Kotter John Travolta.
Well, does he strut in that?
I think so, but it was, yeah, I mean, Miss Kotter, what? Where?
Yeah, that's Mason. If Mason was an actor, he would be John Travolta. And if he had a job, he would be like a cook at Mellow Mushroom.
Ah.
What would your dog be if he was a person or a job? What would his job be?
I think he would be someone like Billy Bob Thornton in Sling Blade though. Because he's a chocolate lab, and he'll look at you, and I'm just waiting one day for him to just say something.
Right.
As far as a job,
I mean, would he be a CPA or a lawyer, or is he more like...
No, he's laid back.
A Walmart greeter?
Well...
He could be a lifeguard. He's a water dog.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say lifeguard, because when we do go for a walk, there's a couple of places where he can go swimming. Oh, you want to? Here's a pet fail. Here's a pet fail.
Oh my gosh, I have a pet fail section in my new book. I'm not even kidding you.
All right, excellent. Here it is.
Okay, I'm getting a piece of paper. I'm ready.
My wife and I were taking Duke for a walk, and like I said, there's a spot on the path that he would go and he can go swim and then get back out. But now, since he's older and he has bad hips and he's a mess. He got stuck in the water, and he didn't have enough power to get up this hill.
Poor baby.
Poor baby is right, and my wife's panicking, I'm panicking, because so Duke, they've had Duke since he was a puppy when they lived in New York, so he is family. I mean, he's, if it came down to him or me, I'm gone. He got stuck. He couldn't get out. My wife had to go take off her shoes, roll up her sweatpants, and get in the water and get him.
Oh, she rescued him.
She did rescue him. And it was a little bit comedic, but at the same time, you're panicking going, oh my gosh, how are we going to get him out? Because the water was pretty deep. And he got to a point where there's like a little bit of a river type, and she was able to get to the lower point and be able to kind of pull him out that way. But oh my gosh, I felt so bad for our dog. And
I have a dog fail in my current book, The Book of Failures, and then hoping to have a whole chapter. Well, I do have a chapter in my new book, but in my current book that's out, The Book of Failures, I have a dog fail about Cooper, who, Cooper is like a child. I mean, all we do is tell him we love him and brush him and give him cookies, like cookie treats. Like, he is the most spoiled, rotten, sweetest animal in the whole world. And his hair was falling out. And so, we switched his diet. We took him to the vet, and the vet's like, he's stressed. I'm like, I assure you, this dog has no stress. This dog is not stressed. And he's like, the dog is stressed. That's why he's losing his hair. He's stressed. And I was like, I don't think so. So anyway, one day I came home and I was like, I had tennis practice or something. I forgot something, probably my racket. That's how my days go. But I ran home and the cleaning people were in the house and they were spraying Cooper with Febreze.
Ah.
Because he stinks. I mean, he's a golden. He stinks. And I was like, no, no Febreze. And as soon as and then he got better. I mean, you can't spray a dog with Febreze. I understand why they did, because he stinks, but you're putting poison on there. So within a few months, he was just as fluffy as ever. But I mean, it was an expense to find out, that he wasn't stressed. We're like giving him doggy massages and playing soft music and changing his diet and, giving him weed lollipops. I'm just kidding. No, weed lollipops. But we were trying to relax him. So we have several dog fails.
I love dogs. I just love dogs. And, that was, I don't know if it was a blog post I wrote or a video blog, but I did this years ago is, when you get married, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a blended family, but if your spouse is a dog person and you're a cat person, I'm sorry, it's not going to work out. And God bless it, we're a dog family.
I like any kind of creature. I really do. Like my mom is a cat, and but she loves dogs. But I really like any kind of like. I would love to have I would love to have a river otter. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's my favorite creature. Is like a little cute little river otter, and they float on their backs and their babies are on their bellies. But I don't know how to care for a river otter, Tommy. So I don't have that. If you're having a sad day, people. Google river otters and watch them. I promise you it will cheer you up. That and people falling. Funny videos of people falling. Also funny. Mm-hmm. Those are my suggestions.
Let's segue into, I know you have a screenplay.
I do have a screenplay. I wrote the screenplay before the book. It's not the same topic as a book. It's like a bridesmaids meets bad moms, funny female-centered comedy. I'm so excited. I'm allowed to say that my executive producer is Suzanne Gerva. She's phenomenal, and it's in development. And we're hoping to use Chicago. She's close to Chicago, Second City comedians.
Ooh.
They're so talented. Kind of like following in the steps of Bridesmaids. All those girls were ladies. Those were ladies. Sorry, I called them girls. All those ladies are either Second City or Groundlings comedians. Mm-hmm. So talented.
Are you going, or have you written a role for yourself?
No, I haven't. I have not written a role. I want to be in maybe a scene. But I did not write the movie for myself or anything like that. I don't want to star in it. Mm-mm. However, this is so weird. So I wrote the book, and I am a shameless self-promoter, and called, every radio station and every television show. Please, can I come on and talk about the Book of Failures? Please. And, so I've been so lucky to be on Atlanta & Company like 12 times. They're so nice to me. I'm not allowed to talk about the book every time, but they'll have me on like the roundtable version, and it's just segment. And it's so fun. It's just fun because I've never done that my whole life. But anyway, someone saw me on a show, and they reached out and said, would you send me an acting reel? And I said, well, I'm not really an actor. I don't have an acting reel. I said, but you can see me, every Sunday at church, and I'm like Moses or Donkey or, Goliath. Just Mary. Just depends on who I am. And they didn't message me back for 6 months, so I thought that was over. And then just last week, they text me or messaged me again. They said, no, really, seriously, I think that you would be cast. I want to cast you in this role. Can we please talk about it? And I was like, sure. So we went and had coffee, and it's a short, like a 5-minute short, kind of like the size of a movie trailer, and he cast me in the role. I can't believe it.
There you go.
Guess what? It's called The Interviewers, and guess what? I was an interviewer in recruiting for 15 years. I'm like, what are the odds of that? Like, I really can do that role. It's a comedic interviewing roles.
It's in your wheelhouse.
It's right in my wheelhouse. And so his name is Sam Jurgens. He's really funny. 6'4". He's an actor. He was in Hidden Figures.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he has, you can look him up, Sam Jurgens. But he is like a real filmmaker. And one of his screenplays, it's not made yet, but he entered it into a screenwriting contest, and he got in the top 20 of over 1,000 screenplays. He's very excited about that. So I was thrilled. He said, Amy, I cast for these frequently, and I get 500 acting reels, and it's too much. I can't handle it. And he said, I saw you on that show, and then you'll love this, Tommy. He goes, I listened to some of your podcasts.
Wow.
And I watched your stand-up comedy, and he said, I just thought you'd be a good fit. I mean, isn't that amazing?
I think this goes back to the premise here of failing, that if you have, in my view, a positive attitude after the fail, so if you learn from it and you take it and go, okay, here's what I learned, and not have a negative attitude about, like divorce. You know, in my opinion, when I got divorced, I considered myself a failure as a man, a failure as a dad. And it took me, and this is one of my biggest blunders, was not listening to Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar talked about when you do have those moments, those life moments where you want to feel down, you want to feel depressed, and just woe with me, don't sit there. Don't be an Eeyore. Again, if you read the book, The Last Lecture, you'll understand the difference between being a Tigger and being an Eeyore. And when you go through something like a divorce and you're sitting around, I was Eeyore for 6 months. And what I should have done is said, okay, I own it. It's done. And maybe not 6 months, maybe 2 months. And I feel that somebody like you, Amy, where you've had these great opportunities, you've written a wonderful book, you've got a movie, you've got this other movie in development, you have your comedy, you have you're serving, you know, at church. I mean, you're doing these wonderful positive things, and it's meant to happen to people like you.
I mean, I don't know. Thank you. I feel like I do, you know, somebody's out there like, I want to write, or I want to play music, or I want to do a podcast. It's like, there's so many things you can do just a little bit every day. You know, what's the rush? You know, I'm 47 years old, and all of this started happening to me in the past couple of years. So it really, I think it depends on your motive. You know, if you're motivated by like, I enjoy this part of my life, and so I want to work part of this creativity into my life every day, and you enjoy just doing that, you're going to have a lot of fulfillment from that. But if you go into writing a book like, I'm going to be like J.K. Rowling and I'm going to sell 1 million copies, or I have to be an Academy Award winning actor, or I have to have this, you may be disappointed. I feel like if you just go through the process, and while you're going through the process, you really enjoy it, and you're kind of claiming something for yourself. You know, you're still got the 9 to 5, and you still got the kids, and you still got the spouse, but you look forward to doing something every day. Like you mentioned, you know, I volunteer at church as an actor. It's the favorite part of my week is being an actor in this funny little show every single week for the second and third graders. And so to have something come out of that, it's incredible, but it's really just gravy. It's just gravy, because I just have, I know this sounds so hokey, but when someone writes me a review or they send me an email and they say, but my favorite one is this woman wrote, after I read your book, I felt like I suck less. I suck less as a mother. I suck less as a wife. I suck less as an employee. I suck less. And then some people were like, do you have a video camera in my house? Like, this is exactly what's going on to my house. And that is so rewarding to me, that somebody got it. They got it. Like, this is funny if we kind of look at it. Now, other people, you know, if you put yourself out there, you're going to be ready for the criticism. And, you know, some people were like, you don't have any real problems. These are just like, you're a suburban mom problems. And my answer to that is, I know there's a lot of problems in the world. I love great literature about somebody pulling themselves up, from the bootstraps and surviving. I mean, really, I love Russian literature. I love, The Good Earth. I love A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Like, I love those. I love Frank McCourt, Angela's Ashes, all those like Come for Nothing and Rise Up from It. And I know there's a lot of problems in the world, but you know what? There is room in the world for laughter. And how are you going to solve the world's problems if you have yourself at 100% serious minded all the time? Like, your break, your soul and your brain needs a break to get out there. And so, if it's a funny book or it's a funny movie or whatever, give yourself permission to take a break from the world and laugh and rejuvenate yourself for a few minutes. And then, you know what? Guess what? The problems will still be there after you're done, escaping for a couple hours. So, I can't let that get to me, right? If you write a book, people can do a review of however they see fit. And I have to respect that. I don't like every book. I don't like every movie. I personally don't write people pull reviews. I just don't write any review. And if I like the book, I write a real positive review. But I can't control what people like and what they don't like. And if my message didn't touch them, then it kind of hurts my heart that I'm like, you're reading a book about a woman that's been married and divorced and remarried and blending families and pooped her pants at a concert and fell down a flight of steps in her underwear showing and got fired. And you can't laugh at that. I feel sorry for you that your life is so as it is that you can't laugh at somebody else's, self-depreciation.
Personally, I'm not a political person. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, and I don't care. But the world, takes that negativity, takes that negative energy, and people use it. Versus why? Why do you have to be so negative? Why? There are good things out there. There are positive things out there. You just have to see it. I can't remember where I read this or heard this, but there was somebody who, you're driving in Atlanta traffic, for example, and there's an accident. And of course, you got everybody rubbernecking, going, "Oh, look, can you bring the body closer so I can take a picture?" Sick people like that. Versus people are driving and they don't stop to look at the sunset or take a picture of the sunrise. They rather stop and see tragedy versus seeing what's good in the world.
I totally agree with you. I think it's a perspective of how you wake up and handle your day. I really do. And, regardless of somebody's, financial, economic, status or whatever. I guess if I lived in a very, very, very poor area, I guess it would be hard if you were taking a walk to kind of smell the roses and hear the birds singing. I do respect that. So if someone is in that situation, that's harder to get up. But you are breathing and you're moving on. But, most of us are not in that dire of straits financially. It's so funny. Some people in real dire straits buy my book, and it just warms my heart. They'll say, "Amy, I'm going to buy your book when I get my paycheck." I mean, it's a $12 book or $5, $5.77 on an ebook message. And how sweet is that and thoughtful? They're like, "When I get paid, I'm buying your book." Like, they didn't have $12 to spare. It's so sweet. But anyway, those people get up every morning and they walk their dog and they're like, "It's a beautiful day. Like, it's spring in Atlanta. And oh my gosh, look at these flowers." Or, you're exactly right. Like, what can you see that's positive? Or if it's not positive, can you pull some kind of humor out of it? Because you probably can. Not in a car wreck situation. I'm not saying that, but you know what I'm saying. Like, in most situations, you can pull some humor out of it.
Yeah, and yeah. Is your husband funny?
No, he's not funny. He's a Georgia Tech engineer, and he's in health. He puts very large acquisitions together for big hospital systems, but he thinks I'm really funny, and that's more important than him being funny.
So opposites attract with the two of you?
We both, like the theater. We both are avid readers. We both play tennis. We both like dogs. So we have, he loves boats. We're in Atlanta, right on the lake. So he has a boat and he loves his boat. So we have a lot of stuff in common. He's a cautious, he's an engineer. So he really thinks about what he says before he says it. And then he's married to me. And, I've actually cost him some clients. Like, I'm trying to be funny and their clients are like, that's not funny.
Really?
Yes. Like, one time we were at the theater and it was the intermission and Peter's like, oh my gosh, it's Dr. So-and-so. And he comes up and he asks my husband this long question about this and that and, acquisition and pay for this and blah, 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 changing building and everything. And, so finally the lights, they flash the lights. So he's been talking for like 20 minutes and the doctor looks at me and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry that I've occupied your husband, for the entire intermission during your date night. And I said, that's okay. He'll send you a bill. Like I was totally kidding. My husband was not going to send him a bill. And he looked at me and turned on his cowboy boot and stomped off. And my husband, I thought he was so angry with me. I mean, not mean or anything, but he's like, Amy, you cannot say that. You never talk about money. And I was like, that was a joke. That was a joke. And he's like, he did not get the joke. And I'm like, that's his fault. That's his fault that he's the stuffy physician that doesn't get the joke because that's a funny joke. We'll discharge you. And he, he gets like, ha, 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 but he didn't get angry. And that guy, it took him a whole year. Finally, something happened. He was in a crisis and he had to call my husband to get him out of it. But so now he doesn't take me. He's very cautious of the dinner parties that he takes me to.
I just imagine. Sorry, Amy, you're going to have to stay inside the rest of the day.
Yes, one time my husband was a speaker for a bunch of anesthesiologists. Like he had just, reorganized their practice or something. And so they were going on and on and on about anesthesiology. And so I looked over to, she's one of my girlfriends. She's the wife of one of the physicians. She's really funny, actually. She's an attorney. And I said, they do make people sleepy. They really do make people sleepy. Because, they're anesthesiologists. And then her husband called wind of that. And he did not think that was funny either. That I was saying that the anesthesiologists were making people sleepy. But that's what they do. It's a joke. It's a joke. So some of the physicians are really funny, because they're highly, highly intelligent. But some of them, they just take themselves so seriously.
What does your husband find funny?
Like a movie? Like give me a movie example?
Yeah.
He is not a lover of the slap, sticky, Monty Python, old school.
Three Stooges.
Yeah, that's not his. Although he does like British humor. He does like British humor. He would never pick a funny movie. If that was his pick, he'd never pick a funny movie. He would pick a documentary or a drama or a, like Marvel. Like he loves adventure. That's just not his thing, which is fine. Everybody has their thing, right?
Right. Right.
But he loves, like, when I do stand-up, he's my biggest fan, and he'll be real honest with me, and I'll do all the bits on him, and, it gets so, as you can imagine, like, we'll be in a fight, and, like, 3 seconds later, I'm texting something, he's like, are you putting this in your bit? Because I do, like, I put our fights sometimes in my book or in stand-up, like, we have one argument where I walk by the shower and he's like, did you use my razor? And I always try to like distract him because I'm guilty, and I did use his razor, and he's told me 7,000 times don't use his razor because my legs dull, the razor, and it cuts them. And so I tried to distract him, and I was like, did you go to speech therapy as a child? Because you sounded kind of like you had a lisp when you said razor. It kind of sounded like razor. And he's like, stop trying to distract me. Did you use my razor on your legs? And I was like, no, I used it on my lady parts. I go, and there again, you're putting your tongue, too close to your teeth because it's legs. It's legs, not legs. And he's just like, you're so weird. Like, stop trying to deflect. I've told you 50, it's so funny. And then it shows up in my book and he's just like, oh my gosh. But, anyway, he's a super nice guy, very romantic.
What about the kids? Do you ever use...
Yes! I use the kids all the time. Like my son, one time we were at Target, And then he got in a fight with like the sisters or whatever. So we loaded into the car, and then we had to run to Verizon for like 5 minutes. And he was misbehaving. He was, I don't know how old he was, under 10. He may have been 7 or 8, I don't know. But literally, we could see him from the Verizon store. It wasn't a safety issue for him to be alone in the car. We're like, you are not allowed to leave this car for any reason because you're being disrespectful and blah blah. So he had to stay in the car. So we go to Verizon, buy a charger or whatever, come back out, and we get in the car. We have 3 girls, one boy, and the 3 girls are like, oh my gosh, it smells like dog poo. It stinks. And here he holds up a bag. He pooped in a Target bag. And he's like, he goes, you told me not to leave the car. And so I put that right in the book. And at first he was mortified, but now he's 16 and he just thinks it's funny, and he kind of brags about it like, I have my own chapter in the book. And he went through a stage where he set everything on fire.
He's a boy. That's what boys do.
Yes. And so, I put that in there like, oh my gosh, he's a pyromaniac. But he's either going to be the best husband in the whole world because these 3 sisters just beat on him, all day long. Not physically, but they're just like yell at him and, or he's going to be a serial killer. Like, we don't know. We don't know which direction he's going to go in.
Well, let's hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, he's an Eagle Scout, so he's responsible. Yeah, he's a responsible child, but yeah, so I do put the children in there. I told the lollipop story, about Madison. So yeah, if I do. One time, Maddie, the middle daughter, and I got into it, and I was covering something with like aluminum foil, and we get the giant aluminum foil boxes from like, Costco. They look like, restaurant. They're like 2 feet long.
Right.
And she was being very sassy. I said, if you sass me anymore, I'm going to whack you with this aluminum foil box. And she's like, rah, rah. And so I whacked her with it, not hard, just to get her attention. And she burst out crying. And I was like, I know that did not hurt, that I know that physically did not hurt you, that I tapped you with this aluminum foil box, and what is going on? And she's like, I don't want you to put that in one of your books or one of your shows. That you hit me with the aluminum foil box. And I was like, I won't. And then I immediately went and wrote it down.
And then put it on a podcast.
Because it's so funny. Because I didn't hurt her. I just tapped her. I was like, stop it. And tapped her, and she's like, don't tell anyone you hit me with the aluminum foil.
Well, we were having dinner one night, and it was one of those rare occasions. It was one of those where everybody was here, all 2 girls and my son, and it was great. And the younger Becca was, to use your word, sassing her mom, and my wife said, if you don't stop, I'm going to throw spaghetti at you. And she kept doing it. And my wife, I couldn't believe it. She did it. She threw spaghetti at Becca. And the best part was, not only did she miss, it landed on the couch. It was a beautiful moment.
And then it breaks the tension. Sometimes in families, a little bit of spaghetti gets thrown. It's okay.
Yeah. And that's why you have dogs.
That's why you have dogs. You're like, come eat the spaghetti. Exactly.
So, Amy, what's next up for you?
What's next up? Okay, so my film, #FakeMom, is in development. So but that's all I know. Literally, that's all I know about it. It's in development because I don't know anything about filmmaking, but I have this marvelous executive producer, so I'm excited about that. And hopefully you'll invite me back to your show and we can talk about it more when I know more. And then my little break into the film world as far as being an actor, and this little movie short is being filmed June 2nd here in Atlanta, and I'm not sure when that's going to be released. I don't know if they release it to the general public or they just send it to film festivals. That's what he's done before, is he's won some awards with these shorts, sending them to participating in film festivals. So as I know more, I'll share more, but that's all I know about that. And then I would love for your audience, if they have a funny fail about blended families, about marriage, about airplanes, about pets, really anything, relationships, I will give them credit if they want credit for it. I'll massage the story and edit it, but I'll keep the heart of the story, but I'll credit them. And if they're like, no, don't use my name, then I can use their initials, and they can get a hold of me at www.amylyle.me, And then my Facebook page is the same, amylyle.me. And they can buy the book online on Amazon. They can buy a paperback, they can buy the ebook, or they can buy the audiobook and listen to the audiobook.
Did you do the voice for the audiobook?
I did not, Tommy. I tried for hours and hours, and I could not pull it off. Telling a comedic story is not the same as reading a comedic story. And so I hired this actress, Angela Massey from New York City. She sounds like me, but she's a fantastic narrator. And I was so excited when the audio version hit the bestsellers list on Amazon, because that was a first for her. She had never done voiceover work.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. She's an actress, but she had never done voice work. And so it was just so exciting. And that's something exciting about my particular journey with my book is I used anyone local or exploited my friends, to be frank with you, to help me. Like my girlfriend, Andrea Ferenchek, is a phenomenal photographer, and she did my covers that are, I get comments on them all the time because they're super cute covers, and designed the cover. And, a friend of mine recommended a content editor, and another friend recommended a proofreader. And so it's, then I told you, I have this group and we share leads to how to promote it. So it's just been such a positive thing where people have really, really helped me out. And I hope to absolutely return the favor in any way I can.
I kept thinking about when your movie comes out, not the short, but the other one. Mm-hmm. Because you were talking about your husband, how he likes the the Avengers type movie.
Yes.
You could be like Stan Lee.
Okay.
So Stan Lee has been, he does cameos in almost every single adventure movie. I mean, he was in Deadpool. Anytime.
Oh, I like Deadpool. That is very snarky humor.
Yeah.
I like that actor, Ryan Reynolds.
So that could be you. You could be like Stan Lee. You could just have a cameo. Make sure you have lines. Gotta have lines. And there you go.
Yes, absolutely. In my own movie, I hope I have, there's one, it's set, the setting is, it starts out in Manhattan and then it ends up in Atlanta. But it's probably honestly going to be filmed mainly in Chicago and Atlanta. But there's a funny bunco scene. I don't know if you know what bunco is, but if you live in the suburbs, women play bunco. My husband calls it drunko because really it's just an excuse to go out and drink wine. But it's like a dice game. And so some of the women, there's this one line in my movie where a woman is talking about, in New York City, they give out condoms in the public high schools. And this woman's like, we would never do that in the South. We are the condoms of our children. We are the condoms of our children. They're not going to. And so I'm like, maybe I could say that just one line. We are the condoms of our children. We will never give out prophylactics in our schools. Actually, nobody has that much of a Southern accent. But the movie, I cannot wait for it to come out. There's, the typical, helicopter mom, and then there's the mom that she's getting divorced, and you're not sure if she's sleeping with the contractors or not, but, she's getting a lot of upgrades for free, so you're like, And, there's the one, Queen Bee mom that's kind of bossy, and there's one, it's just hilarious. It's everyone will know someone in their neighborhood oh, that reminds me of so-and-so, because those characters are based off my friends. I just exaggerated them, they know who they are. My friend Suzanne, she's in the movie. She's just very fastidious, picture perfect woman, but in the book, I made her son be the drug dealer. Because I'm like, nobody's life can be that perfect. You have to have a drug secret. So I gave her a drug dealing son.
It would be. I just picture him walking around with a lollipop in his mouth, and
exactly. Nope, it's bags of weed. He was hiding them in the freezer.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the girls get stoned. They find it, and it's like, woe is me. They're listening to Loretta Lynn. That's a long story. But anyway, it's so fun. There's one scene where a woman, she's in love with Celine Dion. Every time you see her character, pretty much Celine Dion is going to be playing, if I can afford that in the movie. I don't know how much songs are. And so she's on a rowing machine at Costco, and she's in love with the Outlanders character, Jamie. And they have this life-size, poster of Jamie with no shirt on. And she's listening to Celine Dion, and she's rowing and rowing and rowing. And finally she has an orgasm right on the rowing machine.
Oh, you better get this out of development and get it into theaters like this weekend.
I can't wait. It's going to be so fun. So anyway, that's coming up soon.
All right. I think I did it this time.
Thank you for having me on the show. Really.
Well, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me twice.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family. Oh, yeah, and we hope you'll come back next time. Please. No, really, please.
This episode is sponsored today by the book 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. This book was written by kids. It's for kids. It's a coloring book. When you have a tragedy of divorce and you have young children who do not know how to express themselves, this coloring book, 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce, is the coloring book for them. Pick it up today at blendingthefamily.com or even on Amazon. 10 Tips on How to Survive Your Parents' Divorce. Again, written by kids for kids.